Good morning. I'd like to welcome everyone. My name is Doug Woodward with Alliance Practice Advisors. I'm here with Nick Partridge of Five Lakes Consulting, and we're going to be covering a couple of topics this morning. One with regard to your hygiene department, what we like to call lazy recall, and the other one has to do with insurance, deciding whether or not to take PPOs and which ones to take if you do. Basically avoiding adverse insurance decisions in your practice, which is on lazy recall. And we're going to talk, from the standpoint of how recall can either propel your practice to helping you reach your goals, or how it can actually be preventing you from reaching those goals. Likes to have as many new patients as possible, but then also from active patients or recurring relationships, you will find operative word if you're running your hygiene department effectively. If you're a new practice, some of the things that you're setting up right now, and, that may be a little shocking to those of you who have been pre-appointed for a long time. And it's not that we're advocating completely getting away from pre-appointment. We just don't want to do it in a way that doesn't look at the consequences of pre-appointment. To set that up a little bit, I want to talk from the standpoint of a one doctor practice with one hygienist. This is a 4-day-a-week practice, working 8 hours a day, and the hygienist is full-time as well. Coming up on the screen right now will be what a hygienist can actually do within a 6-month period, how many patients they can see. So within a 6-month period, a hygienist working 4 days a week will be able to see 768 units in general. We're going to take out a number for new patients, a number for sealants, also a number for soft tissue management, and lastly for no-shows and cancellations. And the number of recurring relationships that hygienist can see is now actually down to 600. So if your patient base, your active patient base, let's say it's a mature practice, and you have 1,200 patients, and you have one hygienist, then that hygienist can actually see about half of your patients in a 6-month period. And actually, that's the point of the recall program, is we want to see our patients back through the practice on a regular basis. But if we're running one hygienist and we have 1,200 patients, our hygienist is going to see 600 recurring relationships January through June. Now, if we're really, really good at pre-appointing, and let's just for a minute imagine that we have 100% of those patients that pre-appoint for their next visit when they come in, we're going to see those same 600 patients July through December. And evaluating practices, and this is over literally hundreds of practices that I've personally analyzed over the last 10 years, is when we go in and look at reports generated from your practice management software, whether it be Dentrix, EagleSoft, PracticeWorks, whatever the case, we'll see that most mature practices are only recalling between 30 to 40% of their active patients. And when you dig a little deeper into this, you'll find that most of those practices are pre-appointing patients for their next recall visit. So what happens is you get kind of a closed cycle in that new patients come in, existing patients are in the practice. We don't have room in our hygiene department to see all of the patients that we have as a practice, and so we therefore get to a point where we just see the same patients in practice every 6 months. What that does is leads us to a place where we see what we call DCMs, or discussing and cleaning out. When we do that, really, we're narrowing our opportunity for finding operative dentistry just to new patients at that point. Occasionally, you'll find some operative work out of your hygiene department still when you're solidly pre-appointing. But for the most part, the doctor's exam becomes very short. They're able to go in and within 5 minutes come out of the operatory patting themselves on the back because the work that they did over the last 6 months is still holding up, and there's no new work for them to find. And so really what needs to happen to make that practice not so reliant on new patients to find the operative work is something has to occur to break up this recycling of patients. In other words, if this practice has 1,200 patients, but they're only seeing 600 patients recurring through their hygiene department, we've got to break the pre-appointment cycle. We've got to get some of the patients that haven't been in for a while. Those are going to be the patients that have disgusting mouth. There's a reason they haven't been in, and the longer they go, the more chance for operative work we find. And with that said, they're in the practice, they're patients, but it's incumbent upon us as the practice to reach out to them and bring them back. And this is where recall gets the title of lazy from our standpoint. Is you look out at the schedule, and it gives the doctor, it gives the front office staff, it gives everybody in the practice the warm, fuzzy feeling of being able to see patients on the schedule for the next 6 months. But what actually is occurring is those patients are taking up spots that could otherwise be used for past options. So there's several different ways we can do this. One of them would be based on the number of patients actually in the practice. We might look at adding a second hygienist. A second hygienist would then open up some spots immediately for us to bring some existing patients back through. I know this is always a question for doctors when we meet with them is, at what point, what number of patients do I need to have? 100 patients. And you have one hygienist who's fully booked. Right now would be a good time for you to add a second hygienist if you'd like to, A, increase just your hygiene production, B, retain your patients, and C, increase your operative production. How you go about adding that second hygienist is always where the trick comes in, because obviously a practice running with one full-time hygienist with 1,200 patients, if you look at the schedule and there are a lot of holes in that hygiene schedule, doctors typically are reluctant to hire another hygienist. So the first thing would be to do is just look at what is the process of scheduling hygiene patients. Are we scheduling the hygienist that we have currently appropriately? Are some changes needed? A critical look at what is the process for pre-appointing, what is the process then if somebody doesn't pre-appoint, how many patients are falling through the cracks. Every practice wants as many new patients as they can get, but they don't really concentrate that much on closing the back door and making sure that the patients they have, they're retaining. So that's one of the things we want to look at. With that said, if we kind of draw out a quadrant, in the upper left, we would find patients that have money in care. They would be these disgusting clean mouths. They're going to come on a regular basis, pretty much regardless of what you do as a practice, because they put a high priority on keeping their hygiene up, and they have the money to pay. And it's every other quadrant on that page. People that don't have money and don't care, there's not a lot we can do for them, so we'll let them go ahead and slide out of the practice. But the other two quadrants would be people that have money but